Hi Nimrat, welcome to the Quint.
Hi, thanks, Suresh.
So, is this your new place? I heard you shifted to a new place in Bandra.
Oh, I was right in the middle of it. I wish, but my civil work was on when the lockdown began.
Okay.
So it's like indefinitely postponed right now on the plan to move out.
Okay. Let me
Yeah.
start off by asking you, how was it to be returned to Homeland and be a part of the final season? And
Yeah.
what are some of the memorable reactions you've got for season 8?
So it's yet to finish. The reactions have been phenomenal. People have loved it, and the last season of any successful show is very, very tricky because you stand to either disappoint all your fans.
Right.
That's mostly the case because it's the hardest thing to end on a high note for
Correct.
something that's been going on for nearly a decade now.
Correct.
The expectations are sky high, of course. The response has been really, really phenomenal. I have to say that people have loved it, and I was very conservative about not, putting it out there too much because I said, let people make it their own, let the reactions come in, and that's when I'll start to, integrate it and kind of like start talking about it, etc. The experience was phenomenal. It was really amazing. They got in touch with me the year before last in 2018, fall of 2018, and they wanted to know if I was free to be a part of, the last season. And, that's when they started to write me into the part, into the show, my part into the show, because they wanted to know if I would be available for them to reprise Tasneem Qureshi's part. I was like, guys, you had me at the phone call, so I don't know what you thought I was going to say. Because, it was going to take the entire year to film, basically.
Right.
I was kind of busy all of last year filming this. So it was crazy. It was never supposed to happen. The Homeland was always a one-season deal, and season 4 onwards, they were not going to repeat the the storyline, or they were not going to come back to a city or a destination or whatever in that sense.
Right.
Where they were setting the story.
Right.
So they decided to come back to that, and all of it was a massive surprise and a great surprise.
Okay, tell me something. When you received the offer for season 4, I'm sure you must have also been, trying to figure out a lot of good offers that were coming to you from in India, from Hindi cinema. Was it like a dilemma for you to choose whether to do Homeland or to do the stuff that you were being offered here? And do you have any regrets looking back?
The I did have to leave a film before I had to start Homeland because dates were right in the middle of the beginning of Homeland, so I had to let that go. There was a really good project which was supposed to take off again right in the middle of Homeland, but that never happened anyway. So I was kind of relieved that I didn't have to have that regret. Oh God, I had to give that up. It's a hard one. It's a tricky one because you kind of get greedy and you want to be everywhere.
Right.
And while I was abroad doing Homeland, and even though I wasn't really shooting for like 2-3 weeks at one stretch, one time, I could have gone, but they couldn't release my dates because they just don't know sometimes what locations may not be available. We were shooting in Morocco, so locations were always a little bit tricky. Permissions were an issue sometimes, etc. So I had to let go of 2 projects while I was there. And the downside of that is that you end up being missing from the big screen in India, which is a bit of a bummer because I really do miss the interaction you have with the audience on the through the medium of the big screen. And the last time I did a film was Airlift, which was now like 3 or 4 years back. I did a web show in the middle. I did the test case in the middle, which was amazingly loved and very rewarding again. But it's not the same thing as being out there with a film,
Yeah.
So I do miss that. That is a regret for not being able to pick up a film because you kind of go away physically. You're away, so you just kind of miss that. I do miss that.
Right. Now, Tell us, what is the kind of homework that you did for Tasneem's role, and was there any difference between how you prepared for it in season 4 and now in season 8?
So I was better prepared for what was coming my way in season 8 in terms of, what the experience of working in a show like this is, where you have a new director every episode. You get the following episode only a few days prior to filming that. You don't have all your scripts in place. You don't know the entire character arc. So there is no working backwards.
Oh, okay.
You see, there's no point A to point B. You don't know if you're going to die, if you're going to kill someone, if you're just going to, be mowed down by some truck somewhere. You don't know what's going to happen to you in a show like this, right? So writers are also kind of figuring their way as they go along. Of course, they have a better picture of the entire journey for sure. But I think within that, they're also trying to figure how exactly are their characters going to travel through the show. So I was better equipped to handle those kind of logistics, if I may say so. Season 4, I was a headless chicken. I didn't know what had happened. I landed in Cape Town. I watched all of season 1, 2, and 3 there because I hadn't seen Homeland. I didn't know, what Homeland was at that time. So in that sense, I was better prepared to take on, this part, and being in a foreign location, you figure out your bearings and you understand. And of course, it's again, you're reconnecting with people you've worked with already. And most of the crew and the directors were the same. They were pretty much the same from season 4. So it was fabulous to just, kind of reconnect with them and be with them yet again. In terms of preparation for Tasneem's part, what I did stay away from was, I did not go back to watching season 4 and how I was in that, because I felt like I'll just be nitpicking, and I'll take away from, I'll take the fun of defining who she is now. What I did do was that I revisited the scripts of season 4, my scenes, and how that panned out. So that I did as an exercise. And then she's a woman of power in a very unlikely situation. The position she's at, she's a director general in the ISI. It's a position that you'll typically find an older man taking up, in a setup like Pakistan. You don't even expect a woman to be in a position like that. So one doesn't have a reference or a sort of a kind of a lighthouse point of contact or anything like, you don't really have something to work back from. Physically and, costume referencing and all of that wise, yes, you have a lot of very interesting Pakistani women, who present themselves in a very, very interesting way. Their body language is very restrained, and her body language in particular had to be very unapproachable, inaccessible, somebody who's just in there, out there, just doing her job, and is very aware of being probably the only woman in an all-man environment. So that had to kind of be there, and yet not. I mean, it didn't have to really. One doesn't have to wear that on your sleeve, really. It just is. So and otherwise, culturally we're so similar. I didn't really have to make her into a different kind of a part. Or like a different kind of, and there were no histrionics, so there's nothing physically different that one had to do.
Did you have any workshop for your body language or the dialect in which you had to speak?
No, not really, Suresh. Actually, like I said, because the dialect had to be exactly mine. It wasn't a different accent. It didn't have to be something that, I'm playing South Asian. I am South Asian. I am an Indian girl, and India, Pakistan, as we all know, we're pretty much the same. I did sew in a little bit of Punjabi every now and then, because one had worked that into season 4 as well. So a lot of Pakistani Muslims, they speak in Punjabi. My own grandfather, being Sikh, he used to write Punjabi in Urdu, because they all came from Rawalpindi and Lahore, and our origins are all in Pakistan. So it's a very interesting kind of a melting, like they're all kind of integrated, Pakistani Sikhs or Muslims who speak in Punjabi. So I had based her as somebody from that kind of a milieu. So she would interact with the house help in Punjabi, for instance. So I threw those touches in as a personal call.
Okay, okay. Now, I was discussing the show with a couple of people who watched it, and they said that, though the season is centered around Afghanistan and Pakistan and the whole geopolitics, the mention of India and China is completely kept away. Was that done to keep the narrative simpler?
I think that's a question more for the writers, but I feel like I think look, Homeland is a show which mirrors reality, no doubt, and many times in a very eerie, not so desirable way. They also end up, preempting what's about to happen. We saw that happening in a few seasons, where people were really freaked out and they're not events that you wish would come true, you see. They're not things that any of us would want to come true. But Homeland, at the end of the day, is an entertaining, it's a medium of entertainment. It's a mode of entertainment. It's a show that entertains people. It's a lot about Carrie Matheson's personal struggles and her relationships and, her interpersonal problems, or Saul Berenson, or the other characters that are in and out. So I don't think it's fair in that sense to have them touch upon absolutely everything which may be relevant for us geographically and geopolitically, I guess. I think it's a call they make, and they're very, very fair in making that call.
Okay. Now, did you have any personal interest in international relations at all in geopolitics, or did you just read yourself up for the role?
I would have loved to know a lot more, but their resources and their research it goes into Langley, it goes into actual CIA homework and groundwork and all of that. I mean, they get to pick off the brains in the business of the world of agents, you see. So what you get to know or what you read about is really what you watch on the BBC or what you read on maybe the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or whatever, wherever, So my knowledge about politics or what's happening in the world currently or whatever is really what I'm fed by the medium of news. But in their case, they get to know things that, none of us will ever even have a clue about. Yeah. I mean, famously as the writers, I mean, Alex Ganza, who's the writer and the creator of the show, anytime I would ask him anything, he's like, I would love to tell you, but then I'll have to kill you. So I can't. So like, really. But I don't think that's entirely untrue. So, so I do have an idea, yes, but I tried to stick more to the scripts and the storyline, because at the end of the day, no one cared how Hamlet had his omelets. You just cared about Hamlet and, what he was going through or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, now I have to ask you, how was it working with Mandy Patinkin, because who plays Saul Berenson? Because he's such an impressive character in that role, and one would want to know how he is in real as a person.
Very, very. What's the word? He's actually, his enthusiasm is really like a guy, an actor on set on his first day. And I had 95% of my work in this season was with Mandy. So my first day of work, and I was, of course, very intimidated, as anyone would be. He's a multiple award-winning actor, and forget that. I mean, he's just such a knowledgeable person, and he really gets into the skin and under every issue on set. He wants to know everything. I mean, he's really like he's got that childlike energy and enthusiasm and that kind of curiosity on set. So you can't get away with anything, with him around. No department can. I mean, everybody needs to be on their toes, and everybody needs to know what they're doing, because he knows exactly what he's doing and why he's doing anything that, he's doing. So you better be at your A game. You can't just show up. You can't just amble on set, and you can't just be like, okay, today's an off day. There is no off day with Mandy. There is no off day. But he's a really great guy. He's very curious. He has 1,000 questions to ask anyone and everyone. I saw him wanting to get to know everyone. At the end of our filming and everything, I think he knew more about me than even I did. So, he's very curious, very, very chatty, extremely thorough professional. That goes without saying. I mean, very instinctive as an actor, very immersive, sometimes intimidatingly immersive. He can be a little bit, he can throw you off with his involvement in the scene he's that involved. So one learned a lot. I used to watch him a lot more than just acting off of him. Many times I used to catch myself watching him.
Okay. Now, I saw that you put up a picture of Claire Danes on your Instagram, where you probably celebrated her birthday in Morocco last year. How did that go?
Oh, it was so nice. Claire and I unfortunately never crossed paths on set, but she's a great girl, and we got along really well, and we share something in common, which is basically just giggling with no end in sight. I mean, if we started laughing, it's like some people have that problem. I suffer that. If you start laughing, you have a hard time stopping that train. So she shares the same chronic issue. So we've had some really great times, and her birthday was, so basically we had relocated. All of us I was staying at a hotel the entire time. I didn't choose to live in a house, because in Casablanca, where we were shooting, you either have apartments, which are not really the best option safety wise, or you have, how in Delhi we have these big kothis, or in Chandigarh you have these massive villas and kothis. So Casablanca is a lot like that. So Claire and her husband and her kids, her 2 kids and her staff or whatever, they were at this massive bungalow. So she'd thrown a huge party. There were Moroccan musicians, tagines till, we passed out eating, and, it was a fabulous evening. I mean, we all had wonderful times eating and eating and eating again and again. I mean, it was just a lot of food, and in Morocco, it was all about that.
Okay, Nimrat, if you could give us a very brief insight into the work culture on the sets of Homeland, what it is like.
I think down to the last guy you'll spot in a parking lot where the vanity vans, or the trailers as they call them, they're being parked. Everybody has everybody knows exactly what they're there for, and no one kind of misses the train ever. No one would miss anything. No balls are dropped, let's put it that way, ever. Everybody knows their job. You're really looked after, loved and cared for. Everything is looked into down to the last detail, whether it's costume, and everything is so collaborative. For instance, my costumes, for instance, I had a huge kind of a very very collaborative experience with the costume head, because she understood that I come from the region, and the understanding I would have of the simple salwar kameez that one would need to wear. It was very hard to get that sewn in Morocco, because out there women wear kaftans, and their look is completely different, and the tailors were locally employed from Casablanca. So I had to get into helping them source fabric from Delhi. The colored palettes were decided as per what the requirement was of the show was, in that sense, what the color palettes were like. So I mean, as an actor, it's a really lovely experience when you can involve yourself in different departments of what your character is going to shape up as. And on the set, everybody's really fabulous. I mean, it's a set where there is just so much warmth, and everything works in unison. They had a really hard time. I know I wasn't there for Ramzan. I mean, exactly at this point last year, I was back in India because I had a 2-episode break. But they had a difficult time due to Ramzan hitting, the schedule right in the middle, which is why their filming went on for much longer. It hit the schedule. I mean, they were prepared for it, but I don't think they really knew, how the country functions around at that time. So they were supposed to get done with the filming much earlier, premiere and screen the show and everything in fall. But owing to this lag, everything had to be shipped back to the US, the set, everything, all of that. And then they had to relocate. They had to film in New Mexico, what they had to shoot in the Atlas Mountains. It was like, logistically, it wasn't the easiest season for them. So that's what, brought them to air the show now.
Okay. Nimrat, coming to the lockdown now, I read that your mother and your grandmother are in Delhi and your sister is in Bangalore. I'm sure you're in touch with them through video calls and chats, but still it's an anxious time because Delhi is one of the hotspots, or parts of Delhi are hotspots. So how are you dealing with this whole phase?
It's funny because everybody's worried about everyone else. As a family, that's what you do. You worry about everyone else. My mom worries for me. I worry for my mom. My sister worries for me. I worry for her. It's like that. But I think we all know that everybody's doing what they can to the best of their abilities. And anything can turn into a hotspot anytime, you see. I know that, anyone could come down with it. I could come down with it. My neighbor could. Anyone could. You see, so it's like a roulette, right? It's like how they say. It's like it's just a matter of time.
Correct.
So we're all prepared for, I think the event of something like this happening, hoping that it doesn't. But we're all, kind of sticking to our routines, doing the best that we can. We are staying in touch constantly. We keep ourselves distracted with rubbish, conversations and recipes and cooking and all of that jazz the whole time. So, yeah.
Okay, talk about cooking. Since you're the Lunchbox girl, everybody would be interested to know what Ila has in her lunchbox during these times. I read that you're doing some light cooking, khichdi and stuff.
I used to do that when I didn't have time. At the end of the day, when you come back home, you want to eat something at home. So you just want to throw everything. You want to make like a one bowl meal. But right now, time is all I have. And I really do love to cook, actually. I really enjoy kitchen work a lot. I really find it extremely rewarding and therapeutic. So I have gone back to the basics. I've started cooking things that I've grown up on, like, kadhi chawal and things that actually I've never cooked myself. I wait to go to Delhi so that I can eat it at my mom's or my nanny's house. But I don't get into cooking because cooking all of this also involves utensils. And then, it's like a full machinery you have to then, cater for. I'm doing everything. All my housework is being done by me. I don't have a stay-at-home help. So you have to factor in everything that you have to cook and, everything that you will be, the aftermath of cooking, you see. So I'm cooking a lot.
Off the cuff, since you've told all this, do you think you would have approached Ila's role differently now after knowing how to cook all this?
I don't know, but I think I would have definitely played her much more exhausted because, it's like to be as happy cooking as, one may have been in the film. Now, I haven't seen it in a long time. But I know that personally, I get exhausted, because it's hot and, the weather's not the best and all of that, So I did think about this one time that, if that girl, if all she did was cook, she may have been really bloody tired, by the end of the day. So,
True.
yeah.
Thanks a lot for talking to us, Nimrat.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much.